Part 123. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1234. Just after glancing at Yan Ji, Gu Yuchen turned it off and opened it again, fast-forwarded in minutes, and continued to open. After opening more than 10 in this way, Gu Yuchen was proud of saying to the song, "How about it? Do you feel very happy?" Yan Song stared at him blankly. Never thought that this guy turned out to be such a built-in. Still a lonely life, there are so many videos, even if he no longer marries his wife, it should be very nourishing. Gu Yuchen, who was stimulated by the scrutinizing eyes of Yan Ji, was inspired by what he realized later, what he had just shown to his wife-in-law. He smiled, "Little White, have you just seen it just now?" "Yanj, don't see clearly, you put it again, don't fast forward this time." "Gu Yuchen? This kind of thing is actually a bit too dirty, and it is not suitable for his wife, Gaoji." Gu Yuchen considered the words and whispered, "This kind of thing is actually meaningless." Yanj took the phone away from him, "I haven't seen it since I was a kid, it's boring to go out and play, let me see for myself." "Gu Yuchen." He was busy lying with Yanj, "It's boring to look at one person, but interesting to see two people." As a result, Gu Yuchen's mobile phone inventory collapsed in one night. From time to time, the two men whispered and discussed the and small in the video, as well as the beautiful skin. They became research subjects in general. Gu Yuchen's blood was boiling, and he reached over his daughter-in-law several times, but his mother-in-law's face was serious as if he was studying the expression of an assignment. His mind was full of evil thoughts. "Go back. Eggs are set." After watching the videos, Gu Yuchen still sang in the group in the middle of the night, allowing the little friends to send him the latest resources. The next day, after Yanj cleaned up the house, he discussed with Gu Yuchen about going to work. It's not a few days for this honeymoon. Where can Gu Yuchen be willing to let Yanj go to work now? After repeated discussions between the two, they simply planned to set aside a month to compensate for the honeymoon that fell when they were newly married, and go around to enjoy the great country of the motherland. Of course, it's mainly for dog abuse. After the two had negotiated, they immediately set off on their own bags. During the period, Baimu called Yanj again and asked how much money she has now and where she lives. "Yanj, I have 20,000 on my body. Now I live in a hotel. I plan to return Gu Yuchen's money before I go home. Mom, please clean up the room I used to live in. Then you give me 20,000 yuan first, and I will pay the tuition for your nephews first. Mom, that's how I got the money. I'll call you. What am I eating and drinking recently? I have to pay back the money in Yuchen. You borrowed 30 million of him, what's the use of 20,000 yuan, Baimu said, how can you be so cold-blooded, your nephew can't even afford the tuition now, you still have money to stay in the hotel. Yanj, I can't give you the money. Even if I can't afford it, I have to hire a lawyer. If you think I wasted money in the hotel, please clean up my room. I will go home and live with me." Dad and brother discuss how to pay back Guken's money. As soon as Baimu heard it, she said quickly, "Your room has been occupied by your nephew for a long time. Where do you come from? Where do you live? There are so many friends and classmates. If you want to contact them, you can also borrow them. Money, your dad and your brother are bad enough now. Wherever you have money, you can take care of the city. Don't add more trouble." After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1235. The song wailed sobbing. Baimu was upset, so she hung up the phone first. Gu Yuchen wanted to delete the Bai family from the address book of his wife. After all, his wife-in-law cried miserably as soon as she received a call from Bai's family. It was so real, every time she saw her crying, he felt very sad. Fortunately, the two played outside for more than a month. During this period, the Bai family did not harass. Gu Yuchen felt from the bottom of his heart that Xia Huang's video might have opened a new world's door to his daughter-in-law. So the two went out to play during the day, and at night he held his little daughter-in-law to watch Xiao Huang. By the way, I also study some unspeakable gestures. Yan Ji didn't expect this man to be so violent. Fortunately, a month's time has come. The Bai family made a few more calls to Yanj and then completely lost heart. It was Gu's mother, probably because the Bai family came home again, and she asked Gu Yuchen cheerfully, "Do you have a woman outside?" Gu Yuchen didn't understand his mother's brain circuit. "My dad has a woman outside and you cry and cry, why are you so happy when you get to me?" "Mother Gu, can it be the same? Just your wife, at first glance, it is not a good woman at home. I wish you could get out of the bitter sea and start a divorce with her early." Gu Yuchen sighed, "I do have someone outside. It's been a long time. I've kept it tight." "Who told you the leak?" Gu mother closed her mouth happily when she heard the words, "You care about who said it, you say when you bring someone back to see me." Gu Yuchen, "Mom, are you an enlightened mom?" "Mother Gu, of course, otherwise how could I support you?" Gu Yuchen's voice murmured, "Mom, the one outside me, you have actually seen it." "When did I meet?" Gu mother passed all the women around Gu Yuchen and still couldn't figure out which one Gu Yuchen liked. "Like the last song Zi, you still praise him for being good looking, have you forgotten?" "Mother. Song Zi is a beauty master," and his mother was very impressed. Because the man had long shoulder-length hair, he also wore two small braids on his head, and he wore a tight pink casual clothes. Even the shoes and socks were pink. Gu's mother and her companions were playing cards. When Gu Yuchen left, they also discussed Song Zi together. With their knowledgeable elders, Song Zi must be a founder. What she didn't expect was that Song Zi stirred up Ji's head on her son's head. Totally intolerable. The mother-in-law, who was silent for a moment, snarled, "Did you not marry Balin before to die? You obviously like women, how could you like Song Zi? Do you lie to me? Do you treat your mother as a mother? Fool comes to cheat." When Gu mother snarled, Gu Yuchen said in a deep voice, "Mom, I used to think I like white and blue, but you do auntie know, I've been married to her for a year, and I have auntie slept with her. I am right, women have no sexual interest at all. Only Song Zi can make me sexually interesting. I only knew what love was when I met Song Zi. Mom, I know you can't accept me out of the closet, but I really like Song Zi." Gu Yuchen said at the end, suddenly choked, and the husky voice said sadly, "Mom, I'm sorry, I disappointed you and my dad." After that, he immediately hung up. "Can't cry, not sad at all. I felt it for myself, only to realize that his wife-in-law had really suffered a great grievance, otherwise how could you cry and cry?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1236. Yan Ji curiously asked, "Who is Song Zi? Do you think same-sex is true love now?" "I really love a fart." Gu Yuchen busily hugged his wife and scowled over his wife's shoulders. "My little white is my true love. I don't like men. Song Zi doesn't like men either. He has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is still a policeman. He looks very mighty. I'm so scared now. I don't know if his girlfriend knows that if I put her on a green hat, it will kill me." Yan Ji reached out his hand and touched his head, comforting, "It's okay, if his girlfriend dared to fall by then, I will bring Song Zi to death by revenge." Gu Yuchen. How different from the imagination, he thought his wife would say, "Don't be afraid, I protect you." However, it is not bad to be able to avenge him. After all, his wife is fragile and weak. Compared with the tigress of the Songzi family, it is really the difference between an eagle and a chicken. Gu Yuchen thought about it, and he was satisfied. Let's kiss his wife's mouth, my wife is very kind to me. Yanj touched his head, it should be. Gu Yuchen gave Songzi a phone call and squeaked in advance, and then said to the overwhelming president of Songzi on the phone, from now on, you are my derailed lover, the one who really loves species. Songzi, how much is a gram of true love? The weight is too light for me to play. Gu Yuchen, grass, how vulgar it is to talk about money, let's just talk about feelings. Songzi, in the previous 2 days, the second son of Qin made me my first love, and gave me 2 million to buy clothes, 3 million to soothe my girlfriend, and 4 million to soothe me. Gu Yuchen, sit down, grab the money, you have to be shameless. Shameless. Gu Yuchen completely convinced, then how much money do you talk about? Songzi, when I first discussed the specific price with my wife-in-law. The phone was hung up the next moment. Gu Yuchen glared at his mobile phone and felt that he was physically and mentally injured for a moment. He looked up and pitifully looked forward to the song, wife, I just realized that the so-called brothers are deceptive. Yanj continued to touch his head, nothing that can be bought with money is a big deal, and those who can't buy it are really deceiving. Gu Yuchen. He didn't remember his wife's words, and Songzi called again, my wife said you look handsome, and give you a 50% discount, all inclusive of 5 million. Gu Yuchen, your wife won't look after me, right? I won't sell myself, he squinted at his wife, he added proudly, I'm also a wife. You look so rough, my wife doesn't look down on it. My wife only likes charming and beautiful men like me. Please don't be affectionate. Gu Yuchen. To make the most of these 5 million. Gu Yuchen had an appointment with his mother the next day to see her own room. Oh, the location does not need to be arranged. Previously, in order to cope with his family, the second son of Qin specially arranged a house to become a love nest between him and Songzi. Gu's mood on the way is very complicated. On the one hand, she feels that her son has the right to pursue true love, but on the other hand, she can't stand the behavior of her son's churning. When she entered the door and saw Songzi wearing a red and green European and American skirt dress, the whole person was bad. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 1237. This man, even the demon in the demon, even learned the woman to wear a skirt. Shame is not shame. Is there something more like a man? Gu mother wanted to poke her eyes at this moment. Songzi shyly greeted his mother, what does my aunt want to eat and drink? He whispered something like this, and listened to his mother's ear. Gu Mi rubs her teeth, she wants to eat this man. She froze, where has Cheng Cheng gone? Songzi busy said, one city squeezes fruit juice in the kitchen. It's too hot. I want to drink mango juice. Auntie, what do you want to drink? I let Cheng Cheng squeeze a glass for you by the way. Gu mother, distressed, her son stretched out his hands to sip on the rice to open his mouth, let alone squeeze the juice, even the kitchen hasn't been in, but now it's really furious to squeeze juice for such a glamorous bargain. Songzi picked up the file in the box on the coffee table and continued to repair his nails. While raising his voice, he shouted to Gu Yuchen in the kitchen, Yuchen, your mother is here, and you can squeeze a glass of juice for her by the way. No need. Where is Gu's mother willing to bother her son? She is also reluctant to sit on the sofa and stare at Songzi, a charming and cheap man, so she gets up and goes to the kitchen immediately. I found out that my son is not only squeezing juice, but also making crayfish in the gap between the juices. Gu Yuchen saw Gu's mother come in, reached out and touched the sweat on her face and smiled at Gu's mother, Mom, just wait outside, and talk to Ziz by the way, he is very good at beauty. When Gu Mu saw Songzi's glamorous bargain, she wanted to eat him raw. Where can I talk to her? When she thought of her son's goodness of a Chinese cabbage that was so gloomy and cheap as Song Ziyi, she felt distressed and couldn't add any more. Looking at Gu Yuchen's eyes were full of distress and pain. You silly child, why do you want such things? Do it in person, is the maid a show? Gu Yuchen did not seem to notice the painful expression in his mother's eyes, and said with a smirk, Z and I like the two-person world, and it is inconvenient for many domestic servants. That kind of thing shouldn't be done by you. Gu mother anxious, you haven't done this kind of thing at home. He naturally regarded himself as a woman, and this kind of thing should be done by him. Mom Gu Yuchen busy reached out and motioned to his mother to whisper quietly, don't let Ziz hear this kind of words, he will be sad to hear it. Without waiting for Gu's mother to speak, he went on to say, I am willing to cook for Ziz. His fingernails are so long and so delicate, he cannot do such things. They are all men. What is delicate is not delicate, and if you want to talk about delicate, that's because your son is more delicate and needs more weight. Gu mother's heart was distressed, a rough man, what's so precious, and what he wears today, what's it called? It's ugly, and even a master makeup artist, he's an idiot. Mom Gu Yuchen stared at dissatisfaction, Ziz knew you were coming, and was so solemnly dressed. How could you say Ziz like this? He heard how sad he was. Gu mother was so discouraged that she was sad. Not only was she sad, but she also hurt her lungs and her brain. Son, aren't you playing? Gu Yuchen's face was vicissitudes, Mom, I'm over the age of playing, and I want to live with Ziz now. Gu mother, just the dazzling bargain outside, who can live? However, Gu's mother said that the stupid son of her own family was just like a young man who was just in love. She said that she was farting. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1238. Gu had already made up her mind on the way. If her son really loves Song Ziyi and what she really loves, then she doesn't want to hit her son, and accept it if it is difficult, so as not to hurt her son. But now, Gu mother has no such idea. She is so full of snoring now, how can she make Song Ziyi, the seductive, low-handed person, no longer the son of Huo's rooted Miao Hong? After the crayfish were cooked, Gu Yuchen clamped Gu's mother for the first time, Mom, try the crayfish I made. His son was so old that it was the first time that she cooked for her, and Gu's mother suddenly felt sad. My son is so grown up and sensible. And she noticed that Gu Yuchen didn't clip Song Ziyi for crayfish. This preferential treatment made Gu's mother finally regain a little sense of superiority. My mother is a mother, after all, but it's not comparable to these scumbags. However, Gu's superiority was broken after a while. Gu Yuchen feeds the peeled lobster meat into Song Ziyi's mouth, and carefully asks, how about it, is it delicious today? As Song Ziyi chewed, he frowned, it's still not too spicy, and the fishy smell is a bit heavy. Did you wash it off before doing it? I washed them one by one, even my fingers were pierced by the lobster. I must have cleaned them. Gu Yuchen raised his pierced finger to Song Ziyi when he spoke. Sure enough, there were a few blood holes being punctured. The angle of Gu's mother is clear. But before she could distress her son, she heard Song Ziyi roll her eyes and said, it's clumsy, it's impossible to do this. Gu Yuchen didn't get angry at all. He cautiously said, next time, I can do it next time. Mother. Gu mother can't stand it anymore. Where does her son please others, and where she needs to look so carefully, she can't bear it anymore. She finally stands up, grabs her son's hand and says, one city, go home with Mom, what do you want him to do with this scumbag? Gu Yuchen broke free of his mother's hand and did not take care of his mother's words. Instead, he apologized and said to Song Ziyi, my mother speaks gods and gods. In this nature, don't take it to heart. Song Ziyi snorted innocently, Your mother looks down on me, I know, you don't need to say so much. When he said that, he reached out and covered his eyes, and suddenly cried, I know that I can't match you, and your mother raised her nose and eyes at me as soon as she entered the door. You still go back with your mother. This dazzling low-handed man even has the skill of crying and crying. Is a big man shameless, or is he a little bit boned? Resting on weekdays, the skill of crying and crying is also good for mother-in-law, and she can't play worse than Song Ziyi, but now she is so angry that she only wants to jump up. Her sons have been scourged into slaves, and this seductive even grieved, crying s. Gugu gave a fierce glance at Song Ziyi, and went to pull his silly son again. Go, hurry away, what kind of man do you want him to do? A man does not cry easily, you look at him like this, he is still like a man, not a ghost. Gu Yuchen interrupted Gu's words, and looked at Gu's mother with disappointment and sadness. Mom, I'm with Ziz, I don't ask you to agree, but you can't insult Ziz like this, he is really very well, he is kind and cute, and he is better than any woman. Mom, I thought you would be different from others, but I didn't expect you to be so mundane. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 1239. Gu Yuchen held his mother's arm by the hand and pulled the person out of the door. Mom, let's go. You don't care about my business anymore. If you are really good for me, don't treat me and Ziz tell my dad, Ziz is weak, and if he can't bear it, he will get sick. Mom, if Ziz has something to do with it, I will break the relationship with my family. Gu's mother was shut out of the door before she could say a few words. Her eyes glared at the door in front of her, tears streaming down her eyes. That glamorous bitch, this is what evil wind blows her son. What can her son do? The mother-in-law who came home hungrily, remembered the daughter-in-law of her own home. Speaking of which, it was true love to marry a daughter-in-law when his son was going to die or live. Although this daughter-in-law is not of much origin and her maid is a mess, at least it is not a demon. Nor will they divorce their mother-child relationship like that she-male, nor will they instigate the son not to go home and break the relationship with the family. In this comparison, Gu's mother suddenly felt that her daughter-in-law was good everywhere. Gu's mother immediately called her daughter-in-law. At the critical moment, her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were all in one go, unanimously, and after a long period of anti-Japanese war, Gu Yuchen finally saw the picture of Song Ziyi splitting his feet on two boats. Gu Yuchen went home sadly, and Gu's mother didn't dare to stimulate his son at all. He just hoped that his daughter-in-law would take care of his son's heart. She was really afraid that her son would come out again. To be scared to death. The jokes of friends of the same age will not be told, mainly because they are afraid of their son being scourged again. After all, men are so attractive and cheap that women can't be surpassed. Gu's mother has a psychological shadow over Song Ziyi's glamorous and cheap goods. She has now turned into a god's assist for her daughter-in-law, and she can't wait for her daughter-in-law to make a bridge with her son immediately. Yan Ji did not expect her mother-in-law to be so open when she became enthusiastic. Not only did she buy toys for her, but she also taught her how to embrace the giant baby man. He did not hesitate to make a black face, let her make a white face. Really, flattered. This time the couple returned to Gu's house and did not move out. Gu mother took a two-pronged approach and asked her son to work in the company. Of course, in case her son was found in the company, Gu mother sent his daughter-in-law to the company and became his son's right hand. The Bai family later learned that Yanj not only did not divorce Gu Guken, but also got the favor of Gu Yuchen, and immediately made a comeback, and wanted to continue to earn benefits from his daughter. Yanj is not the host, she directly instructed people to break the leg of Beiji, a brother who was still gambling. She did not pay back the gambling debt, but from time to time, she would help two nephews. The marriage of two people is not only the union of two people, but also the integration of two families. Fortunately, this time Gu Yuchen and Yanj both agreed to the outside world. As a result, smooth sailing, rare harmony. At the age of white hair, Gu Yuchen was sick and hospitalized. When he woke up, he found that his wife was sitting on the bedside and guarding it for a long time. He was dozing off at this moment. He looked at the woman who had walked with him for a lifetime, and at this moment, his eyes were infatuated. Yanj noticed his gaze and smiled at him with his eyes open. How? Is there any discomfort? Gu Yuchen wanted to touch her face and paused. The next moment, he pointed to the position of his own heart. Here, it's uncomfortable here. Yan Ji was busy standing up, but Gu Yuchen held her hand down. I had a dream. He looked at the wrinkles left on Yan Ji's face over the years, and said softly, dream that you and I married and killed myself within a year. Xiao Bai, when I opened my eyes and saw you, I felt very happy. The happiest thing is that he and her are holding hands to the age of gray hair. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 1240. After Gu Yuchen died, Yan Ji closed his eyes at the same time. The dizziness swirling around the ears, buzzing all over the body. Yan Ji just felt like a headache. She gritted her teeth impatiently, and waited until the pain and dizziness of her body receded like a tide. Then she opened her eyes and looked around. Her mental strength was already half weak, and because of the lack of buffering, the two planes directly crossed, making her feel that her body was torn into countless fragments, even if there was no entity. Entering the plane at this moment, although fused with the host's body, the hidden pain caused by the spirit still persists. Therefore, there is no extra energy to fuse the host's memory and the tasks in this plane. In front of him, it was dark. Not in the dark, but in a closet. She fell to the ground with her feet tied with ropes and her hands sealed with tape. After Yanj adapts to the darkness, it is speculated that the current host should be hijacked. She scrutinized carefully that no one else existed in this dark room. The body's hunger is so strong that it should not eat for at least 1 day and 1 night. Numbness in hands and feet was almost nothing. Yanj slowly moved his fingers, groping the rope around his wrist. Knots are not complicated, they are very simple bonds. It shows that the identity of the host kidnapped is not complicated, and the weak woman of the host is not considered. After the fingers were flexible, Yanj took a moment to open the knot and untie the knot on the ankle. Adapting to the darkness in the dark room, Yan Ji looked around while moving his steps slowly to get his body back to normal. This dark room has no windows, and a lot of debris is piled up in the corners. Moreover, if you feel carefully, you can see that the dark room is moving. Such a steady move, she should be on a ship, or a relatively large ship. There wasn't even a sound around at the moment. Yan Ji speculated that she should be in the sundry storehouse at the bottom of the ship, and obviously, this place is very remote. Because it was too dark, Yanj groped for a long time to find the door. The door was made of wood, but it was clearly locked and unable to open. Yanj tried to push and pull several times, feeling that the door lock was not very strong. She was slightly relieved. This body is weak, and hasn't eaten for a long time. Hungry, dizzy, the brute force alone cannot open the door. Yanj turned over the place where the sundries were piled up. Fortunately, she turned to the wire. With the wire in hand, the door lock opened without worry. However, Yanj turned it over again, and found something like a small iron stick in his hand. Standing at the door and arguing the sound outside, after confirming that there was still no sound, Yanj opened the door lock with wire. Although the door was open, it could only open a gap. There is a large box of large boxes of goods stacked outside the door. The box is half a person tall, from the ground barrier to the ceiling, and the door is tightly blocked. Yanj's arms stretched out and pushed, and the big box couldn't move. It should be a cargo hold. There is a slight light on the outside, but there is still no voice. Yan Ji did not expect that he would still be unable to get out when he opened the door. But after a brief sting, she began to take the wire and a piece of iron found, and fumbled for the nail on the hinge of the wooden door. The door isn't strong, and it's quite a hindrance. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1241. If you want to go out, you have to get rid of this door first. Fortunately, the gap opened so that the light came in, so as not to continue to blindly touch the fire. After the door was dismantled, Yanj lifted his feet and went to the box again. The wooden box didn't move. Yanji looked up at the box so far from the ceiling. With her current body, she should be able to climb out. She simply leaned the door on the slope, climbed to the top of the box, and leaned forward. This warehouse is very large, and Yanji crawled for a while before seeing the path in the middle of the wooden box. Instead of jumping off the path, she continued to climb on top of the box. There was no one on duty in this large warehouse, so after Yanj crawled through the top, he found a few wooden boxes that didn't look strong, and tried to pry open. The inside was not food but some leather bags. Yanji was dizzy and hungry, and now he just wants to drink something to eat. She found the door and slid it from the top of the box to the ground. The gate of the warehouse was just closed and unlocked. After listening to the sound of no one outside, she opened a gap and left. She should be in the cargo hold at the bottom of the ship at the moment. After leaving this large cargo compartment, there were two cargo compartments next to it, but they were not as large. Yanj went in and looked for it, and finally found some imported chocolate and juice in another cargo compartment. I ate a little, and then Yanji continued to go out. In this kind of place, she dared not to memorize, ate and drank, and found a backpack from the large warehouse. She carried the chocolate and water on her back, and Yanji carefully continued to look around. There must be a place for such a large boat, but I don't know where it is. Turning around a corner, there was a shout of men playing cards in front. Yanj ducked into a corner and hid. Her eyes were now obscured and she urgently needed a clue, so she did not avoid them. Instead, I found a safe place to listen to these people. After listening for a long time, I came out roughly. This is a large tourist ship that turns around to transport smuggled goods. It was originally intended to dock at Porta in Huaxia. Floating on the sea. These people went home one by one in anxiety, and were very dissatisfied with this kind of thing. After a while, one of them left the group on the grounds of releasing water. The other also teamed up and went to put water together. To the surprise of Yanji, the toilet next to her was in the bathroom. The whispered words of the two men in the bathroom also entered her ears. If we can no longer rely on the shore, that thing will starve to death. That's no way. You can't let it go. With so many goods, the door won't open at all. It's annoying. I haven't slept once since I got it. This time it's too much. Well, you still have to think about the dead. It is not difficult to destroy corpses, and the utility room is a dark space. Basically no one knows the place, and it is impossible to wait until the right opportunity to throw people into the sea. Both of them were very sorry, but they still couldn't sleep the woman. Although the two men said nothing, and the words were vague, Yanj immediately understood that what the two men said was her body. Knowing that the ship was still waiting at sea, Yanj did not run out. She listened to these people every day for a few days. Although there was food and drink in it, she was really stuffy, and she was almost waking up. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1242. The entire ship was filled with smuggled goods, and Yanj turned around. In addition to these cargo bays, there were also a few large warehouses, with large cars and small pieces of furniture. With the smuggled goods in these large cabins, the owner of this ship must be someone on it. But this time I couldn't go to Hong Kong. Yan Ji listened to the speculations of those people. It seems that there are some great personalities who have taken the initiative to rectify the smuggling phenomenon. They are still randomly inspected in port patrol. They took refuge in the sea and waited for the big men to leave, and they were still able to enter the port smoothly. Sure enough, they were expected. About 2 days later, Yan Ji learned from the applause of those people that the ship was entering the port immediately. It is necessary to unload cargo when entering the port, which is an opportunity for Yanj to escape. But she didn't want to let go of those 2 people who had kept their hosts in the dark room. After all, such a small person, once she realized that she was not in the dark room, she definitely felt that the deeds would be hidden, and when the time came, the sea would fall and it would be difficult to find someone. Although the body is weak, but the victory is in the dark, it can be unexpected. Near to Hong Kong, these people are also very busy. Yanj found a dagger from a box in one of the warehouses, and she found an opportunity. When one of them went to the warehouse for inspection alone, she rushed up from the back, cut the throat with a knife, and cut it. The man fell to the ground before his death, eyes wide open and staring at the song. His eyes were all surprised. Probably never dreamed that Yan Song would appear and would kill him. Killing is simple, but it is difficult to clean up these blood stains, and it is about to enter Hong Kong. There is not much time to sing songs. She wrapped the man's neck with some of the clothes she found, she bleeds again, dragged the person to the back of the warehouse, and cleared the blood on her face again. Another man, Yanj, was blocked in the toilet. She had just killed someone, and before she had to clear the blood, she heard the sound of the radio, and several others were sipping on the man who had disappeared. She hurried out of the bathroom and walked quickly towards the way out. The clothes on the outside were stained with blood, and Yan Ji tore them off as he walked and threw them into the trash. A sportswear was pulled out of those warehouses. Although the clothes were a little bigger, they were more sharp than the previous skirt a lot of. There were only a few people in the warehouse. When they entered the port, they were very busy. No one saw the song that had entered the elevator. The cargo compartment is on the -2nd floor, and the elevator buttons need to be swiped. The card in the singer was collected from the man. When she entered the elevator, she pressed the 1st floor and then the 2nd floor. When the elevator came to the 1st floor, the words went round and round. People were coming and going, and many people were preparing to disembark. The bottom of such a large ship is loaded with cargo, and the 1st and 2nd floors are filled with tourists, mixed with so many tourists, and they can relax after speaking. But immediately, she noticed that the guards on the ship were listening to the intercom, and then looked around alertly. There is a camera in the elevator. Before the corner of the elevator, Yan Ji not only threw the elevator card, but even the sportswear suit on his body was thrown into a cart. At the moment she was wearing pink short sleeves and a pair of jeans. She changed her face like this and was not likely to be recognized. The ship had entered the port, and the crowds waiting for the ladder at the exit had a commotion. The ladder that had been set up was put away again by the service staff. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1243. After what the service personnel said, the crowd swarmed reluctantly to start a long line, one by one to take out the ticket ID card for inspection. Not only a few service personnel were guarded at the exit, but several guards also came to the exit. When Yanj entered the elevator, he put on the hat on his sportswear and lowered his head very low. These people could not distinguish between men and women, so they could only check them all. After such a check, the speed at which passengers disembarked slowed down, and many people scolded and were very angry. After all, it has been delayed for a few days at sea, and it is going to be worn down, and now it is blocked again. Good temper is just complaining, and bad temper has jumped and scolded. The words were mixed in the team, and when they descended the stairs, they fell down on the railings and turned outwards. Two guards rushed towards her immediately to catch. Yanj turned around and kicked him with a spin kick, rushing towards the crowd. She noticed that after she ate and drank enough, her strength was quite strong, and she seemed to have practiced the bass. Just then, the guards on the ship and on the shore all rushed towards the words. Yan Ji's body is small and dexterous, rushing through the crowd. She had previously seen a security hall on the port when she was on the ship, but she did not know the rights of the owner of the ship, so she did not dare to go to the security hall for help, only rushing into the crowd. Behind him was a guard rushing forward with his body to sing down the song, and his hand was also directed to the song's hair. Yan Singer drew his elbow to the man's eyes, and the man leaned back. Yan Song struck him down, and quickly got up and hit another rushing guard. After the collision, he rushed forward. A car rushed around the corner at this time, his eyes narrowed to hide, and Yan Ji rolled his body and tried to avoid it from the bottom of the car. The sound of the car's sudden braking sounded, and Yan Ji only felt that his legs couldn't move like a pound for a moment. She turned to look at it. The car ran over her leg, and after a brief numbness in the leg, there was a conical pain. The car stopped, and the person in the back seat quickly rushed down and took Yanj in his arms. Ian. This man, know yourself? After seeing the man's car, several guards hesitated to say a few words to the boss on the intercom, and then quickly withdrew. Yanj grabbed the man's arm and said, "The cargo compartment on the Oriental's ship is full of smuggled goods. You first call to see where you can complain, and those goods will be unloaded soon." The man glanced at Yanj with a complex look. He put the Yanj in the car and drove the driver to the military district hospital, and then quickly made a few calls. Hearing the contents of the man's call, the string of Yan Ji's tightness finally dropped, blood dripped from his legs, and the pain became increasingly unbearable. Yan Ji closed her eyes, her pale teeth clenched, and her face was covered with sweat. She pretended to be in a coma and began to fuse the memories of her host. Obviously, this is not a good opportunity. The mental strength was originally severely damaged, and now that has been damaged, which is the worst state. When the host's memory is merged, Yan Ji only feels the pain of the soul, almost like being torn and burned. The host this time, called Chen Yan, was tasked with a man named Li Feng. Li Feng and Chen Yan both grew up in the military district's courtyard. They are considered to be young children, and because of the elders' relationship, the two were very little engaged. Li Feng has been arrogant and naughty since he was a child. When he was 15 years old, his brother became fiercely silent because of his official death, and gradually moved away from Chen Yan.